Hello, and welcome to the Hive Mind podcast, where the collective wisdom of the travel industry helps you match travelers with the right destinations and the right hotels. I'm your host, Whitney Schindler, founder and CEO of The Hive, a platform designed to give travel advisors organized, actionable insights you can put to work right away. Each week, I sit down for focused, real-world conversations with travel advisors, hoteliers, and supplier partners who know these places inside and out. We break down how each hotel is best suited to a specific client profile, take quick deep dives into destinations, and share pro tips to help you make the most of the Hive. And here's the best part. You don't need to take notes while you listen. Go about your day, tune in, and know that every insight from these conversations is already captured and organized inside the Hive. So it's there when you actually need it. And if you're on the Hive now, you can find these notes in the Supplier Pulse section. If you aren't on the Hive yet, you can get resources from this and other episodes when you join our newsletter at thehive.travel/podcast. Today's episode is part of the Stay Guide, where we explore multiple hotels in a single destination to highlight their unique strengths, differences, and the clients they're best suited for. Today, we're focusing on the Palace Hotels in Paris. You'll hear us mention the following hotels: Shangri-La, Hotel Le Bristol, Hotel de Crillon, a Rosewood hotel, La Réserve Paris, Le Royal Monceau Raffles, Park Hyatt, Hotel Lutetia, Hotel La Peninsula Paris, Mandarin Oriental, Plaza Athénée, Le Maurice, and Four Seasons Hotel George Cinq. There are three more that you'll hear us mention that are not, at this time, Palace hotels, but they do fall in line with a similar level of service and quality and experience, and they cater to a similar clientele. So you'll also hear us mention the Ritz Paris, Cheval Blanc Paris, and Hotel One Place Vendôme. The goal in these episodes is not to rank or compare, but to give you the clarity and confidence to guide your clients with ease. Joining us to discuss their experiences staying at these properties and conducting site inspections is Jaclyn D'Esposito of Heartfelt Travel and Jessie Leventhal, who is a Travel Advisor. Let's dive in. Hello, everyone. Today we are diving into Palace Hotels in Paris, which I'm very excited about because it's a long list of some of the top hotels in the world, I think we can say. And here with me today to dive into this topic is Jaclyn D'Esposito, owner of Heartfelt Travel. Jaclyn, it's so good to have you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And Jessie Leventhal, who is a luxury advisor with Forex. Jessie, it's nice to meet you and welcome to the podcast.
Nice to meet you too. Thank you so much.
So Jessie, you live in Paris. How long have you lived there? And what's the 30-second background story on you moving to Paris?
Okay, 30-second background story. 30 seconds is tough, but I've been here 3 years. As of last week, it's been 3 years, which is crazy. I moved here. I had been living in Los Angeles between LA and New York, felt like I knew exactly what the next step in my career and my life would be. I wanted to take a whole different path, challenge myself, do something totally different. I decided to move to France on a whim, study French, teach meditation, a completely different life path. Along the way, I traveled by myself 2.5 months, 10 countries through Europe. And when I got back, I was sharing, all about my cool stories, the places I had been, and a mentor told me, there's a company called Fora. You could be making money this way. This is a job. This is a business. And I'm like, there's no way I could be creating a career based off of just sharing and talking about hotels, my biggest passion.
Mm-hmm.
3 years later, we're in deep, and I'm having the best time doing this work. I absolutely love it. I live and breathe it. And it's ideal to be based in Paris and have Europe as my backdrop to speak to.
Yes. Yeah. I also remember the first person who made me aware that being a travel advisor was a thing. And I was like, what? Like, there's no way that's true. And sure enough, totally. I never looked back. Jaclyn, when I think of you in Paris, I think of was this the first like hotel scouting trips that you went on? And I was at home just watching this of like, did she just see 45 hotels in 2 days? Like, what just happened?
I knew you were going to bring that up. I knew I wasn't.
It's literally like what I always think about when I think of Jaclyn in Paris.
I feel like notorious probably has a bad connotation as a word choice, but that's one of the things I would say I am known for. So it's January 2023. So yeah, just 3 years ago. And I'd been to Paris before, but I was like, there's so many hotels, right? Just go on like Condé Nast, Travel and Leisure. Like when they put their
Yes.
list of best hotels, there's like 40 to 50 hotels.
Yes.
So I
Which,
was, all right,
yes.
yeah, if
Yeah.
this is going to be my profession, like I have to see all of them, even if it's just to be able to say to a client, like, no, avoid that place like the plague.
Right. 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 Hmm.
So they weren't, I would say, like my top site inspections or like the most in depth, but I think I hit like 36 hotels or something crazy in just a
Hmm.
couple days. And one of the days I visited 14 hotels.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. You're actually like, I just want to go to bed thinking about it. You're actually I think of this like Matt Damon level logistics. Like she's walking out the front door, car pulls up, picks her up, zips her off to the
It
next
was like
hotel.
that. It was. It was. And I was probably not the most gracious guest either, because I remember some of them I walked into and I was like, oh, this is not it. And I like I was like, this is when I can buy back some time on. Like, let's keep this moving.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so you are right that Paris is absolutely overwhelming when it comes to the number of hotel options and understanding the nuance and the location and the differences and all the things. And so today we are not going to give anyone a golden nugget answer of like the best hotels in Paris, because there's no in my mind there's no answer to that. There's no answer to the best hotel in Paris. The subcategory, let's say, that we are going to focus on today are palace hotels, because I do think that it is really important to understand what a palace hotel is, how a hotel receives or loses that distinction, and what some hotels, who are also some of the top hotels that are not a palace hotel, and what that even means, so that we can kind of be one step ahead of our clients. So I'm on Paris's tourism website right now. I'm going to read what they say is the definition of a palace hotel, but then I'm going to come back to you guys and ask you to give it to me in a little bit more like just everyday speak of like what you think about when you're talking with clients about what a palace hotel is. So it is a distinction. Being a palace hotel is a distinction that a hotel can receive. It is a prestigious label that increases the international profile of five-star hotels that present exceptional characteristics such as geographic location, historical interest, and bespoke service. There are two stages to receiving a palace distinction. First, there is an examination of the application. So the hotel has to officially apply, I believe. Atout France that's the official tourism organization, right?
And
Or is it tourism? It's not like hospitality specific. It's just tourism, right?
I think so.
I believe
Yeah.
so.
Okay.
And they're the ones who are doing
Yeah.
the awarding. Yeah.
Yeah. So you apply to them. They check the eligibility first. So this is like the first filter. You have to have a 5-star rating. You must have a spa. You must have a polyglot staff. That's interesting. And concierge service. Then you have to present in front of a panel of personalities, is what it says.
Love that.
14 members are on the panel from the world of literature, the arts, culture, the media, and the business world, who decide whether or not the establishment can aspire to the palace distinction in terms of the beauty of the place, historical heritage, high standards of service, gastronomy, and the environment. They give their determining opinion, and that's the decision. This all sounds very French.
Yeah.
Reading this is like, this is so French. There are 31 hotels that have been awarded the Palace distinction in France. 12 are in Paris. So, Jaclyn, if a client comes to you and they're like, we've heard of a Palace hotel, or what is a Palace hotel? Or maybe they just don't even know and they're just listing off fancy hotels in Paris. Like, how would you describe to someone who's not in the travel industry what a Palace hotel is in France?
To me, in the most simple terms, a palace hotel is the distinction that sits above 5 star. So I say, take what you think about a 5 star property and level up one tier.
Okay.
That because there's so much distinction and variety among that 30 plus group that you said, and even in the 12 just in Paris.
Mm-hmm.
That's for me the most simple terms where a non-travel industry person can understand generally what does this mean.
Okay. That is super helpful. Thank you. Jessie, what would you add to, if someone is just like Palace Hotel, I've never heard of Palace Hotel. What is that? How would you describe it?
Yeah. I mean, I think Jaclyn had a perfect definition. I think if there's anything else I'd add, Palace hotels, all of them are in very specific locations that are quintessential Paris. So, I mean, you've got great 5 star properties across Paris. I think these are really notable for their location. And then also, as we go through this list, you'll see a lot of them have multiple Michelin star restaurants. So there's a very, very, intense emphasis on gastronomy, on wine in all of these Palace hotels. And then, of course, the highest possible level of service, which we'll obviously speak to.
Amazing. Okay. Super helpful. First, before kind of diving in, I'm going to read through the list of just so that everybody knows like which hotels are currently Palace hotels. It is possible to apply for distinction, and then it takes a little bit of time, before you get it. It is possible to lose the distinction. So as of January 2026 or February 2026, this is what is online. Hotel de Bristol, Paris, Hotel de Crillon, a Rosewood hotel, La Réserve Paris, Hotel and Spa, Le Royal Monceau, Raffles, Paris, Park Hyatt, Paris Vendôme, Hotel Lutetia, Hotel de Peninsula, Paris, Shangri-La, Paris, Mandarin Oriental, Paris, Plaza Athénée, Paris, and Le Maurice, and Four Seasons Hotel, George V. What is not on this list that we will also talk about is Cheval Blanc, Paris, and the Ritz, Paris. That is a lot of hotels.
Yeah.
Before we dive into this list, Jaclyn, when a client comes to you and they say, we want a week in Paris, we've never been, we want to do all the things, or we want a week in Paris and we've been a million times, I don't know that it matters. Do you automatically just go to one of the hotels on this list, or is it a part of your mental due diligence filtering process of like, there's some other 5-star hotels that are not Palace that I think these clients would love? How do you look for and sense like the client fit to a Palace hotel versus a 5-star hotel in Paris?
It's a fluid question and it's definitely changed over time. And I don't know that I would have answered that the same way in 2023 versus 2024, 2025, today, next year.
Sure.
And part of the reasoning is that there's more hotels coming to the scene. So for me, the one that shook things up the most was One Place Vendôme. And there's not too much in the literature about it because they've been very tight-lipped. It's a no photo property. So even when I went in, it was the only person there, like all the guests were out for the day. I was not allowed to even take a picture in a private guest room with no guests around. They would not allow me to even have the photo on my phone.
Wow.
Yeah. It's built to be more like a private members club. They will
Okay.
not be a Palace hotel because they don't have the spa and they don't want to be, right?
Okay.
That's also part of
Interesting.
like the new generation coming in. These new hotels that are opening up, they like that they are anti-Palace in many ways. So it's totally fluid and it all depends on what the client wants.
Okay.
I generally view it more from a pricing standpoint because the Palace hotels are pretty consistent in their pricing. So it's for me, that's the first gating item is where are they going to come at budget wise? Do they have a budget for a Palace hotel? And if they do, then it becomes a matter of which one is the right fit for them.
Okay. So what I'm hearing is within this list, You have different locations. You have traditional and modern aesthetics. You have differences that it's not palace or no palace. It's actually, do we have the price point A that even makes this feasible? And then if yes, then we just consider the top hotels that are a good match.
Right.
And the palace distinction is no longer like a deciding factor. Okay. What is the price point that, like you said, if there's some fairly consistent like starting points, what should we expect for palace hotels?
It depends on the season that you're going, of course. And even if it's out of season, but it's during fashion week, that impacts pricing as well. So it's not related to palace hotels, but generally my number one tip for Paris when you're looking at rooms and rates is make sure you're not going during any fashion week. And fashion week is not 1 week a year, it's multiple times a year. So outside of that, I would say you're generally for the top, in quotes, top ones, you're looking at €2,000 a night plus. And they start well into, the threes and higher if you're traveling in June.
Yep. Okay. And then, because you said in quotes top, are entry level palace hotels, like is it $1,500 a night starting?
You can get in there, right? Especially if there's certain rates and promotions, you can definitely get in for under. Like I know for even the Creon, you can get in for under. They have a lot of like stay 5, pay 4, stay 4, pay 3. So with those and the partnerships and things like that, you can definitely get in for under. And even with the Mandarin Oriental, they have really great promotions through the fan club. They have great rates for families, for example, with the 50% off the next. I think Dorchester also offers that. So there's ways that you can finagle the pricing for some of them. But when I'm considering top, especially in terms of pricing, being the Ritz, Cheval Blanc, and the Four Seasons, the Georges V, it's really hard to get into those for under the $2,000 a night.
Got it. Perfect. That's super helpful. When you're starting out, one of the hardest things is delivering a polished, consistent client experience, especially when you're still finding your footing. That's where the Hive can help. It's your expertise vault where hotel details, destination insights, and advisor takeaways are captured and organized, so you always have professional, client-ready knowledge at your fingertips. With the Hive, you can sound consistent, credible, and prepared from day one, and that's what builds trust and gets clients coming back. Curious? Take a look at thehive.travel. Okay. This list is long. How is there any way that we can kind of like group this list into subcategories? And I don't even know what those subcategories would be because I have not seen all these properties, but is that a fair question to try to chunk these out a little bit?
Sure. I would say so.
I thought a little bit about
Jessie, what
this.
subcategories would you...
Yes. So I thought a little bit about this, and obviously Jaclyn, fill in with me, but the way I'm thinking about these is sort of breaking up to 4 categories, or 5 rather. Classic old world Europe. So that's going to be the Ritz Paris, the Bristol, George V, the Creon. More modern and design focused. So that's for sure Cheval Blanc Paris, Mandarin Oriental. Culinary really for me is George V with 3 Michelin stars, Le Maurice and Plaza Athénée. And then boutique.
Wait,
for sure is going to...
third category, say that last one again.
Anything that's really culinary driven. So that's going to be George V, George V, Le Maurice, Plaza Athénée. So those are really like heavy hitters on food and wine programming. And then more boutique properties like La Réserve, Park Hyatt is a little smaller. And then lastly, thinking about what's more historic and has more of an artistic flair, I was thinking about Le Maurice and Lutetia. And there's some other ones like Royal Monceau, Peninsula, Shangri-La, that we spoke about before the podcast started. But those are also in a category of their own, Asian brands and just sort of tailoring to a different audience, I would say.
Does location factor into this at all, or are they all kind of already in a similar location in Paris?
They're all over
They're
the
all
map.
in relatively
Yeah.
similar. I was gonna say similar, but
Okay.
they're spread out. The one outlier is the Lutetia, which is the only
Hmm.
palace hotel on the left bank, which is
Got
now
it.
a Mandarin Oriental. So there's two Mandarins in Paris, which are the Mandarin Oriental Paris, and then the Mandarin Oriental Lutetia, which is on the left bank. And that's the
Got
only
it.
palace hotel on the left bank.
Got it. Okay. So location, maybe not the biggest factor then. Okay. So classic old world, modern and design focus. So like these are two aesthetic categories, which I think is really helpful because most clients have a pretty strong preference. Culinary focused, boutique, historic and artistic, and then the Asian brands that are going to feel more Asian than French, just like in probably the restaurants on property, the overall design and aesthetic, things like this. Would you add anything else, Jaclyn, just in terms of like categories?
I think of it in like a completely different way. And
I
Jesse's
love that.
right.
Tell me.
With everything that she said, she didn't say one thing wrong. I think how my brain thinks about it. Like I would not have thought to put things together in like a culinary way. Cause for me, it's
Mm,
like culinary also varies. I
Sure.
would say the main thing how I look at it is how do people want to feel when they're on vacation? For me,
Oh,
it's all about the vibe and the atmosphere and the clientele. And what I really noticed in the past few years in Paris is this huge shift in the palaces that has not made its way to all of them. So some of them have resisted this change. But for me, it's really like how stuffy is it? That's kind of my barometer.
hmm
How
hmm
stuffy is it? Um,
hmm
and what really tipped me off to this is when 3 years ago, and I had my crazy site inspections, I thought it was wild and revolutionary that in all these Michelin restaurants, because they really pride themselves on how many stars they have under the same roof. I'm going in as they're prepping for lunch and dinner, and there's like no white tablecloths. And I'm like, what do you mean? And they're like, oh, our guests, it's too formal, it's too fancy. We're trying to be hip,
hmm
we're trying to be that. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. And I think most of them caught the vibe that when we're on vacation, we want to relax. Like we don't want
Yes.
to have to dress up when we're on vacation. That's not universal or across the board, but
Right.
I tend to come at it from a combination of how stuffy is it, and how French does it feel. Like those are my two that I come at it, and they're not necessarily the same. So, for example, the Ritz, you can't get more throw up in your face Parisian than the Ritz. Gold swan faucets and the peach towels and the decor and everything and the outfits that the staff wear, like that's Paris, Paris, Paris. You're not getting more than that. But at the same time, for me, the Ritz is not stuffy at all. Like it's very, very fun. They lean into the absurdity of it all, right? Like for me, it's very, very fun. And even though you're in this opulent setting, you can still be yourself. I know that that's not universal across the board. It's how I feel. Um, Whereas the Bristol is also incredibly French, but it's deeply traditional. And when I'm there, I feel like I can't have a slouch in my back. Like that to me, that's one of the stuffiest of them.
Okay. Interesting. So yes, I want to further define stuffy, just to make sure that we're all
Get
thinking.
canceled, Whitney.
No, 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 no. I think that stuffy is, I think the word for me has a negative connotation, and I don't think that you mean anything negative. I think that you mean what I'm envisioning when you say stuffy is on your best behavior,
Right.
not walking in tennis shoes. Like you need to walk in and present yourself as a person who should be there, which means probably not like the way that I get off an airplane is probably not appropriate to walk into the Bristol. That's kind of how I think of when you say stuff. And I don't know if this is what you mean, but this is what comes to mind for me. Like you said, kind of sitting up straight in any type of formal or atmosphere like this, I wouldn't necessarily feel comfortable to let my kids be kids. So if my kids were there, they would be on best behavior. I would be shushing them every 3 seconds. Like I wouldn't really let them be themselves until we were outside. The white tablecloths, of course, as you mentioned, like I would expect like very hushed voices, very formal service, probably not shooting the shit with the waiters when they, when they bring me food, or bantering or joking with a bartender, probably not the vibe. Is this what you mean? Because this is what I imagine when you say
That's
stuffy.
what
I don't imagine it as a negative. I just imagine it as like a very formal overtone.
Yes, I agree. They're more formal, but some people they seek that out and that's very important to them. For others, it's not, but that's how I would say palaces have evolved over time and why it's hard to like put one defining characteristic on all of them. Because I do think they carefully curate their clientele and their atmosphere and environment.
Can we also just get canceled and say that this is old money and new money, probably?
I've thought about that. I think in a way though, like for example, Plaza Athénée doesn't really fit that mold because I think Plaza Athénée, the clientele who's attracted there is an influencer who wants that picture hanging over the balcony on, Avenue Montaigne with the red awnings and the Eiffel Tower sparkling in the background. Like it's a very new money vibe, but the formality of it all, like the pomp and circumstance there, the decor, the design, it's more in La Bristol category.
Traditional. Yeah. So this was my next question for you is when we talk about white tablecloths, being dressed a certain way just to walk into the hotel and check in, not letting kids be kids, like really making sure they're on their best behavior, I automatically think of a more traditional aesthetic, but that's not always true. So I would love to know like which of these hotels kind of break the rules of like very formal, but maybe a more modern or contemporary aesthetic versus more relaxed or not as formal and stuffy, but still the traditional decor.
Oof, that's loaded. I would.
Welcome to my podcast.
I would say, all right, please chime in, Jessie, but I kind of put into one category, right? Like the ones that are generally consistent and don't lack the variables for me are the Peninsula, Shangri-La, Royal Monceau. Like I kind of lump those. They're out of the way, right? They're not centrally located. They're from Asian brands. They don't feel very French in any way. Not that they're necessarily interchangeable, because I don't think that, but I kind of put them off to the side. And I generally don't put clients there unless there's a particular need to put them there. So the Royal Monceau, for example, like it's more of a local hangout. So if they want to feel like a local, they love sushi because of Matsuhisa, or they want an Hermes leather appointment, they go to the Royal Monceau. For Shangri-La, it's really, in my view, solely just because you want to feel like you woke up under the Eiffel Tower and went to bed under it, and you want that particular location. And then the Peninsula is a bit of a mix. It has views, it has a very high level of service, but it's also a good value property. You have to be okay with the style and the location. But for me, like I kind of lump those together.
Okay.
I don't necessarily hold the Park Hyatt in high regard. For me, it's way too corporate and anti-French of a hotel to be paying a palace hotel rate. Like for me, it's very solely a points redemption property if people want to save budget somewhere.
Interesting.
Are you aligned with that, Jessie?
I am.
You can,
and I've never. No,
okay.
totally. To me, Park Hyatt Vendôme is business. It's business travel. It's not super playful. It's a little bit. Yeah, I mean, I'm in the same camp. I've never booked anyone there, unless exactly for use of points. But the question was about what property like surprises you a bit in the way that like you can go in and you can walk in your workout clothes. That was the question, right? I just want to make sure I have that right.
Yeah, it's yeah, because I'm trying to understand, like I generally stereotype formality with a traditional aesthetic. And that's not always true. Like you're kind of saying, Jaclyn, that Plaza Athénée does have a more traditional aesthetic, but they are more playful and they're kind of attracting influencers. And if you put a client who is very traditional and looking for a more formal atmosphere and they're there are influencers in the front taking photos,
Right.
that's not going to be great.
Right. So I would say Le Bristol and Le Maurice don't break from that traditional stereotype. They're very formal, very traditional, not fun and playful energy. So those, I would say, stick to the mold.
Yeah. I also don't think you can really
Disagree with
avoid
you.
this.
Disagree.
Please disagree.
No. So I definitely think the George Sank, it is as traditional gets. I was just there yesterday. It's serious, but I think what it all comes down to for me when I think about palace and very serious tone, it has to do with the service. For example, you walk into La Reserve and the staff out front are some of the friendliest, most like, some of the happiest smile you'll see in the whole trip while you're in Paris. And yet, La Reserve, the rooms are very, proper, and the place feels like your own former mansion. Like it's very classic in design and quintessential Parisian feel. And yet the staff is what makes it feel like family. Their sales manager, Alexandre, has become a very good friend, and she's, walking around to every table saying hello. It's much more like, familial and family vibe in terms of how you feel when you're there versus the George Cinq, you're kind of left to your own, and, Madame, can I get you anything? And they're always, there's someone in the corner looking out in case you need a new napkin or you spilled something. It's just, for me, it comes down to feel. And there's a story I tell. It's not at the Cheval Blanc in Paris, but actually at the one in Saint-Tropez. I did an experiment one time where I was putting in some ice cubes in a glass for my iced coffee. And I was like, I'm going to spill a little bit and see how many seconds it takes for someone to come to my side and clean the situation. And like literally before I could count to 2, someone was already there, because there's like 3 staff for every single client. And there's just people waiting on your back and call. And to me, that's like the stuffy feeling that I feel like Jaclyn was describing.
I would put that in the stuffy category.
Yeah,
I would put that in the stuffy category of like, I dropped my napkin. Thank you so much for your help. I'm now uncomfortable. I could have picked up my own napkin. Like that's how I would personally feel. Like it's okay, really. I can pick it up. But the attention to detail of, I don't know, you've come down every morning and ordered an iced coffee. And so now today I'm just going to ask you if you're ready for your iced coffee. Like that's very, very, very high service, but not stuffy in my personal opinion.
I agree.
Exactly.
I agree with everything you all just said there. And La Reserve, I would put that as like an outlier too, because it's one of the smaller ones. That's one of the true boutiques on this list. The location, it's very close to Le Bristol, but it's designed by Jacques Garcia. So you've got these deep colors and heavy velvets, but you feel like you're in your own pied-à-terre in many ways. And it's super informal in the service when you're there. So even though you're in this elevated environment, it's not the same way when it comes to the service. It's way more come as you are.
So I love that you just said that, Jaclyn. So one of the key questions we ask on the Hive when advisors are sharing their feedback, either from a site inspection, a rating from a personal stay, or a rating from a client stay, is we ask about the vibe and we ask about the nuance. Because if I opened up all of these websites for each of these hotels and I was just looking at location and I was just looking at pricing, which is what most consumers do and what advisors do when we don't know better. We've never been, we've never seen them. We don't know an advisor we can ask. That's really all we can go off of is websites, location, and price point. Yep. I would immediately close 60 to 70% of these tabs because the traditional decor is not my vibe, personally.
Same.
But the nuance that both of you are bringing is why this is so interesting and so important, that just from what you've shared, La Reserve is like huge smiles at the door, is people stopping by at your table during breakfast, knowing exactly what you order. And by the time you leave, half the staff knows your name and you feel like you've made a friend. I would look over, in that case, I would personally say, listen, it's not my typical preference in decor, but I absolutely love my experience staying there because I feel like I leave with friends, and I would ultimately opt for that hotel stay. But I would need an advisor who knows me and who knows the vibe and the energy that I'm looking for in order to match me with that hotel, because I would never get there by myself.
No, and
Totally.
that's, I would say, true for all of the palaces. I don't think that many of them necessarily match their persona online. And even with the Bristol, right? Like with Ocker and their collaboration for clothing with Sporty and Rich, and now that they're really pushing the Bristol After Dark, and you see Timothy Chalamet and the Kardashians staying there, like their public persona really doesn't match what it's like when you're sitting there having an afternoon coffee.
Interesting. So do you think, could that set anyone up for disappointment? If I see the Kardashians and Timothy Chalamet there and then I get there, are you saying that it's more formal than what it's being portrayed on social media?
Now that's a loaded question. I've never heard one. But I think if the person who was there, right, because they saw Timothy Chalamet and Kylie Jenner staying there, they would never probably publicly admit that they were disappointed. They would just tell everyone that they stayed at the same place as the Kardashian Jenner family. But I think it could set you up for disappointment. I'm not going to say here because I've stayed at most of these properties, and most recently in December, as recent as December 2025. And what I think we would all agree on, and every advisor who's regularly selling Paris would agree on, is like, if there's one thing that you could guarantee at any of these hotels, no matter how different or similar they are, is the level of service. And
Yes. Yeah.
at two of them, I had in November some of the worst service I've experienced in Paris. So I think that goes to also keeping current with it and seeing how they evolve, because it's not, just because it is a palace doesn't necessarily mean
we can't just blindly
right
send people there and not kind of keep tabs on. Fabulous. It just makes our job so much more difficult. Thank you, Jaclyn. Thank you so much for that.
Pleasure.
Jaclyn, I'm going to need to
Taylor
know.
sings about Plaza Athénée.
I'm going to need to know offline.
This idea of following celebrities is probably not what I would recommend, just kind of based on what you're sharing, because Taylor sings about Plaza Athénée, but like, are you a good fit for Plaza Athénée? Like, I don't know. Let's talk about your vibe, right? Like, it's kind of like when someone comes with the ChatGPT recommendation. Cool. Like, yes, that's a palace hotel, and yes, you're going to get great service, but I don't think it's what you're looking for. So maybe don't follow our celebrity crushes or our our favorite celebs. Back to the two options, or did we mention three that are very high end, very luxury, but not palace distinction? Cheval Blanc Paris, Ritz Paris, and then you mentioned briefly Hotel One. But let's maybe focus on Ritz and Cheval Blanc for a second.
Yeah, I would not put one Van Damme at the palace level. They don't want to be.
And they don't want to be. Like, they are specifically not checking those boxes. Okay, so Ritz and Cheval Blanc, do they want to be palace and they just aren't yet? Or are they anti-palace like Place Vendôme is? Like, do you know the story with those properties at all?
Tell me if you know something different, Jessie, because you're on the ground there. My understanding is Cheval Blanc has been trying to get the official palace designation since they opened. And every year they say, this is going to be the year. What I could be totally off base about is the number of distinctions. I always thought about it kind of like liquor licenses in New Jersey. Like, there's a limited number of distinctions that can be awarded.
So somebody has to come off the list before they can be added on.
That was always my understanding, was someone had to come off for them to come on. And I don't know if this is what's happening with them and the Ritz, because the Ritz was always historically a palace hotel. And it's not like there was some big announcement that they came off. But if you look at the list, they're no longer on it. And I don't know if that's so Cheval Blanc could come on it. I don't know if it's, again, like a liquor license thing where they said this doesn't matter to us anymore. If it's something where you have to pay an annual fee and they said, you know what, we're done with it. Cheval Blanc, you care so much about it. Here you go. I don't know the politicking behind it.
Okay. Jessie, do you know any details at all?
I can't say that
and it's probably not straightforward.
Yeah, I think it probably is a little bit political. I don't know the full scope or story, but it's strange that, I mean, the Ritz is the Ritz. They're in a category and a league of their own. If they were to ever have come off, I feel like they're not fighting for their lives to try and get back on to prove anything. They've already proven themselves as being in, a separate sector in terms of the history and the Parisianness. So yeah, I feel like, but I don't know why I can't speak to like the specifics in terms of palace terms as to why they're not there.
So in terms of how I was reading at the top of the episode, like the definition, in terms of being a 5-star hotel, having a spa, having a polyglot staff, concierge service, obviously, and then the beauty of the place, the historical heritage of the place, the high standards of service, the gastronomy. Like, in your minds, does the Ritz Paris and Cheval Blanc tick all these boxes, or are there any that is like, well, technically they wouldn't tick that box?
For me, yes. They both do it more than a third of the hotels on the list.
Yeah. Okay. So even if they're not technically listed as a palace hotel, you hold these two properties in similar regard in terms of just service and offerings and staff and everything across the board.
Definitely. 100%. And their pricing reflects it too. So those two together with the Four Seasons, Georges Cinq, they're the three most expensive.
As your travel agency grows, one of the biggest challenges is making sure your whole team delivers at the same level of expertise you do. That's where the Hive comes in, serving as a knowledge hub your entire team can lean on. You can capture and organize every site inspection, hotel note, and destination insight, creating a shared library that ensures consistency across your agency. That means your advisors feel more prepared, your clients receive a seamless experience, and you don't carry the burden of being the only source of knowledge. Every hotel note, every site inspection, every destination insight, every piece of client feedback, captured once, accessible to your whole team. That's the Hive. Explore more at thehive.travel. Okay. As we wrap up, we're going to do a little speed round on client fit. Ooh. So because it's easy, I'm going to describe myself first. I have been to Paris many times. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to describe different client profiles. And I want each of you to tell me like top 1 or 2 properties that come to mind. Okay. Regardless of pricing, regardless of fashion week, just think about vibe, stuffiness, energy, aesthetic, like what you think someone would love the most. Okay. Just a little speed round. Are you ready?
Ready. Yeah. Ready.
I'm going to describe myself first. I have been to Paris many times. I used to live in France. I speak French, but my vibe and my aesthetic is much more modern and contemporary. And I am absolutely walking in to check in like probably Japanese sneakers and Vori sweatpants. So I prefer no white tablecloths, but I want a palace hotel and I've got the budget to do it. Where would you send me?
I think 3.
I think 3 too. I have a triple tie.
All right, let's see if they're the same. I would say either Cheval Blanc, the Lutetia, or hold on, what was the third one that I had?
If it's the same as mine, then we're of the same mind.
La Reserve.
There it is. Same.
Those are you both thought the same 3?
Same.
Those are the 3.
Do I
Same.
need to like change in the airport to go to La Reserve though?
No, for all the
Okay.
reasons I
Okay.
mentioned, because you're walking in, the
Okay.
staff they already know about you. They're saying hello. It's exactly that. Actually, to quote the sales manager, they want to create the vibe where you can come down for breakfast in your slippers. It's a small place. So
It's
you can
really
be there with
good.
your whole,
Oh my gosh.
yeah.
I love this so much. So I will say that just based on what I've seen on websites and what I've heard other advisors share and what you've shared today, like those are the three that I also thought for myself, like I think I would check those out. I think that they would be mostly my vibe. Okay. Now I want you to think about a couple who is celebrating a 50th wedding anniversary, but they've never been to Paris before. They're looking for classic French, Parisian, white glove level service.
The
I would,
Ritz.
I, I would say George Sank or the Ritz.
Amazing. Now I'm sending some. I don't want to get too much into stereotypes, but I am trying to think of client profiles.
While you do that, can I add on to the Georges Cinq?
Yeah.
So this is probably, I don't know, maybe you'll appreciate this, Whitney. I, for many, many years, snubbed the Four Seasons for many, many years. Because for me, even though the decor is a bit classic, to me, it doesn't feel French when I'm in there. I don't know why it doesn't click for me. For me, it's an American hotel in Paris.
Interesting.
Um, that said, I stayed there when I was there in November and it totally converted me. And now I truly couldn't love it more. Um, and it had to do with the level of service. I don't really view it as an in your face French property. It has that to me like American DNA in it. But the service level that I experienced there rivals most hotels I've ever stayed at in my life. Like really blew me away.
Cool.
But sorry, just really
Okay.
before we go
Yeah. Go,
on
Jessie.
from that, I want to add that that makes sense because they have, I believe it was 13 golden keys, this Clé d'Or status for their concierge teams, which makes it the leading concierge in the world. In every hotel around the world, around the
Wow.
globe, they have the strongest concierge team. So you give them a task, they can do it. They can accomplish anything at any point in time, in any moment. And so that might have been what you were feeling, Jaclyn.
You know what? I didn't use the concierge once when I was there. What really blew me away were the doormen. And I told them
Oh,
that. I said the doorman made the experience for me, which I don't know anyone has ever said ever before, but they were just so on it and did a lot of things for me that like I was like, I didn't know this was possible.
yeah.
That's super cool. Okay. The next client that we have is a group of girlfriends who are celebrating a 40th birthday.
Oof.
They want great dinners, but Michelin, like good food is more important than Michelin key, like white tablecloths. They're absolutely going to be shopping. There will be a couple late nights, but not every night. There will also definitely be a spa day and a day where they just order in-room dining and enjoy the hotel.
You could do a lot.
I
There's
know.
a lot. There's a lot. Honestly, budget would probably impact that the most. But in terms of like pricing doesn't matter. You could put them at the Ritz. You could put them at the Four Seasons, not because they would be dining there necessarily, but it has the great spa and the location to the shopping. And as Jessie's saying, the concierge, it could get them whatever reservations they want and keep up. And when I think group, I think demanding. Like you have to be able to satisfy all their demands. Like every group trip I have, I'm always like, they're going to be fine. And then it's like complete chaos. So I think the Ritz could keep up with them. The George Cinq could keep up with them. I think Lutetia could keep up with them. Their concierge impresses me every single time we work with them. And then in terms of like vibe necessarily, La Reserve is great because if they were like, we want to have a movie with popcorn and candies and whatnot, like they're doing it. Cheval Blanc could be really cool too. But those are the ones that are jumping out to me.
And
Jessie, what are you thinking?
I agree in large part. I would definitely say Cheval Blanc just because the rooftop is one of the best views in Paris and the bar always has sort of a buzz there. There's a lot of people. Langosteria is always popping.
Mhm.
It's got a great scene, got a great energy. So their food and dining establishments have a lot of good buzz, in addition to the fact that, you're
Cool.
right next to Samaritan. You've got great shopping in that regard. Mandarin Orient, the Lutetia, also totally agree with the concierge team. I had big group, um, similar to what you're describing, and they blew it out of the park there. La Reserve, I think, is amazing. If this was a group of men, for example, they have a cool cigar room. Women smoke
Hmm.
cigars too, but I
Cool.
think it could be great for like a group of
Hmm.
guys like that. And then I'd also add the Bristol and Plaza if they want a bar scene, because at the Bristol, you got Bristol After Dark. At the Plaza, you've got, I mean, that bar, like it goes off. So, if you want sort of a fashion crowd and they want to go like late night and they want a little bit of a party, Plaza Atene also I would add in too.
I was so happy
Okay.
you said that. That's really one of the key questions I ask if it's a new client, Whitney, in a discovery call, is how important is a really good hotel bar to you in Paris? I would say that's one of the most important questions to be asking or knowing the answer to and knowing your client on where to place them.
Okay, that's what I'm asking next. So one of the categories, Jesse, you mentioned was gastronomy with food and beverage and whatnot. So if a client is like, I want top-notch food and I want a bar on property that is buzzy and not party over the top, like I want to chat with the bartender and like have a really nice experience. But I don't want to have to leave property to find this food and beverage. Is that too specific, or are there properties that come to mind?
It's not too specific, but so many of these will, embody that. I feel like, you
It
know,
it would work. Okay.
yeah, even in a smaller property like La Reserve, I mean, that bartender is skilled. He's making you whatever kind of concoction you can come up with, and it's the best quality ingredients, and the vibe is nice because it's small and it's intimate and it's cool. So, but also if you go to the George Cinq, I mean, their culinary program is out of this world. They have 3 Michelin star restaurants that actually all face each other. It's not a joke, and their bar is top notch. But also, you got Les Ambassadeurs, which is a cool Parisian quintessential, beautiful bar scene. And also Cheval Blanc, like I mentioned, you got great culinary offerings there. Hakuba, I don't know, Jaclyn, if you had a chance to check that out when you were here, is there a Japanese restaurant that is so impressive. It's a multi-course, multi-hour situation, expensive, but in my opinion, very worth it if you're into high-end sushi. It's fantastic. So it's tough. There's so many of these that have great offerings. I don't know, Jacqueline, what do you think?
Okay.
No, I agree with everything that you said. And even like Le Maurice has a cool bar area, but I think depending on when you go, it might feel a little bit more formal than what you were
Sure.
Mhm.
looking for.
Sure.
I think the Crayons bar is one of, if not like the best, just hotel bar, period, right? But if it's the intimate conversation with the bartender, you might not necessarily get it there because of how it's set up, but
Right.
it's so good and it's so highly coveted and guarded that you're not really getting in unless like we have a connection there,
Interesting. Okay.
or you're staying at the hotel. So if that's really important to you, right, then you're staying at the Creon. The Bristol with the Bristol After Dark is so fun, and there's no real like nightclub in
Hmm.
any palace hotel, or I think any hotel for that matter in Paris. But
Hmm.
there, like, it's really hard to have a conversation, but it's more of a scene, even
Okay.
if it doesn't match the rest of the hotel.
Got
I
it.
would say the biggest flaw with the Ritz is the lack of a good bar.
Okay.
Bar scene, you
Good
mean
to
in terms
know.
of
Super good
action?
to know.
Sorry, you mean like in terms of action and
Not
buzz?
No, so the Ritz, so when I think of a hotel bar, I should say for a client, what most of my clients want is at the end of the day to be able to walk down, get seated, have a very good drink, a personable server, and like a decent small bite. I think it's really challenging to do that at the Ritz because they only have the Ritz bar, which isn't super comfortable to sit at. and you have
But
to
we're
like
leaving out
pre-reserve it basically.
leaving out Bar Hemingway.
Yeah, and then Bar Hemingway, it's phenomenal, but you can get in as a hotel guest only if they pre-book you for the first seating.
Yes.
Like you're not walking down there whatever hour and getting in. So
Yes.
the Ritz, it's just like for a lot of people, it takes too much effort to get a drink.
Mm-hmm. No, I see what you mean, but definitely we cannot leave out Bar Hemingway. If people want, a famous classic, Parisian institution of a bar, Bar Hemingway is, one of the reasons why I book clients at the Ritz, because they want to be able to have access to Bar Hemingway. Right. In 3 years I've lived here, I've been to a lot of bars. I have never been to Bar Hemingway simply because I don't want to wait in a line, and I haven't stayed personally at the Ritz. So, it's worth mentioning that's
it just has to be, if you want to go, it has to be intentional. It can't be an afterthought of like, oh, we have 45 minutes before dinner, let's go grab a drink. So like totally. Great experience, but it has to be intentional. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And even with all of their bars there, it does kind of have to be intentional. Like even the Ritz bar, you still have to kind of call down and be like, hey, we have a dinner at 8:30 tonight. Do you have an opening at the Ritz bar at 7:30? And they'll be like, okay, we can get you in. Like you still kind of have to call down, which people don't like. So that's why it's important to pre-vet. And I think this all came about in recent years because where they have the Ritz Comptoir, their bakery, that used to be another bar area. And then they moved that bar to create the Ritz bar. And a lot of their old timer clients got really upset about that.
If you don't know something like that before getting there, I can absolutely see how people would be disappointed. So I think that it is a really important kind of factor and consideration and nuance to be aware of. I feel like you guys are just starting to like really get excited and get into this. And now I have to let you go because we are absolutely over time. So if there are other hotels in Paris that you want to chat about, that you are both always welcome. I really appreciate your time and your willingness to dive into all of these hotels and to share your thoughts and to maybe get canceled, but I hope not. I don't think we said anything too bad, but to just really dive into the insights and the nuances, because websites and Michelin stars and Palace distinction are kind of like interesting, but to really, really, really get the right fit with your client, it's all these insights and nuances that you guys shared. So thank you so much to you both.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
This was so much
fun.
Thanks for
having us. Thanks, Whitney.
Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of the Hive Mind podcast. If you enjoyed today's conversation, be sure to subscribe so you never miss a new episode. And if you know a friend or colleague who would enjoy this, please share it with them. If you would like insights from this episode landing in your inbox each week, join our newsletter at thehive.travel/podcast. And remember, if you'd like to contribute to a future episode, whether it's sharing your destination expertise or your experience touring hotels, just head to thehive.travel/podcast to learn more and express your interest. We'd love to have you join the conversation. Until next time.